Welcome, one and all, to another mega bloodbath. The topic of the bloodbath today is: does God exist necessarily? In this corner, we have Jack Talcott representing the affirmative. Yes, God does exist necessarily. Welcome to the stage, Jack. And in the other corner, we have Mr. Breakfasttacos representing the negative. No, God does not exist necessarily. This should be a spirited debate. Both of these guys are seasoned debaters, well trained in their crafts. The rules for you two gentlemen tonight is basically moot, except for no over talking, no interrupting. Let's keep personal attacks to a minimum. We're going to start with Jack Talcott on the affirmative, having an 8-minute opening on does God, yes, God does exist. Sorry, exist necessarily. Whenever you're ready, Jack, just let me know. We'll start the time.
Let's begin, please.
You
and admittedly, I intend no disrespect for the opportunity or my opponent. However, I admit my opening statement is quite transparent at this moment regarding the necessarily of a God. This may or may not be challenging. I'm not certain what to anticipate in our conversations today. However, though, for the concept of a maximally great being, the possibility of that, the possibility of the existence of God would bring it into the equation as a necessity. And so by the mere fact of an existence, it comes from an initial source, an initial intelligence. And I believe that and a first cause. And the first cause of the effects of the universe and the process of time and creation, it comes from a mysterious source that I believe is, well, I don't know how it cannot be part of the equation, the mysterious force and intelligence behind the universe and all life that exists within it, without any other word from our vocabulary that I'm aware of. I think God is the most appropriate. And being the first source, the one source of all things, through all things, the consistency of the creation and this force and intelligence behind the patterns, I believe the case is quite clear that there is necessarily God. And I think I'll yield my time from here, please.
Okay, you have about 5.5 minutes left. You sure?
I'm not sure. Well, I appreciate that offer. I do. I'm well seasoned in discussions and perhaps arguments, but the more formalized debate structure, admittedly, I'm learning as I go, and clearly mistakes. The necessity. Does God exist necessarily? I suggest that yes, in order for us, for you and I and this creation to be, the answer is affirmative. There necessarily is a first cause, a first source, and a supreme intelligence of a maximally great being, which generally should meet the requirement for the definition of God. Through another, one thing that may be questioned is the idea of a necessary truth. And I believe that we do have some necessary truths, the alternative being like contingent truths. There are some truths that are consistent regardless of where you go or what may be found. So the idea of a necessary part of truth being in the equation of existence, regarding the realm of mind, logic is an example of a necessary truth. I think we agree that I believe we may be able to agree, but I don't yet know that logic exists, math exists. It's not contingent upon anything other than the awareness of those things. And so I believe that God would also qualify in that. It's a necessary being it's a necessary being of maximally greatness that is a requirement for the allowance of our being. I think that's it. Otherwise, I may just keep repeating things.
Okay, solid intro by Jack. Came out swinging. Whenever you're ready, Tacos, you have 8 minutes on the clock. Go ahead.
Good evening, people. My brothers and sisters in atheism, thank you for joining me today here. And Jack Talcott, of course. Tonight's debate question is, does God exist necessarily? That sounds fancy, but it's not really that complicated. To say God exists necessarily is to say there's no possible world in which God fails to exist. Not just God's very powerful, or God has always existed, or God is the best explanation. No, necessary existence means in every genuinely possible world, God exists. My opponent, Jack, is a Christian theist, and that matters. He's not here to defend some vague first cause or anonymous ground of being. He has to defend the Christian God, a personal, omniscient, omnipotent, morally perfect, typically triune mind. He also said maximally great, which, from my understanding in the original translation, just means biggest. Anyways, as the fundamental necessary being, right? If he falls back to some necessary foundation, maybe God, maybe not, he's actually abandoning Christianity in favor of generic metaphysics and conceded the debate by the resolution. And this is where it gets interesting. So I agree that there is a necessary being, right? Most cosmological arguments point to a chain of explanations that terminate in something that cannot fail to exist, right? And on that, I don't even disagree. You can't have an infinite hierarchy of because with no bottom, right? I just don't find it very convincing. But where we differ is, what is the necessary being, right? My opponent says a personal God. I say a simple physical initial state, what I call the universal quantum field, the fundamental physical reality that underlies everything, right? And strictly speaking, I don't even need to defend my necessary being to defeat his, right? If his God fails to qualify as a necessary being, the resolution is false and he loses the debate. But I'll still sketch my worldview so that you can see that there's a cleaner option on the table that actually coheres with reality, right? So a necessary being is just something that exists in all possible worlds and cannot fail to exist, right? So notice what's not baked into that definition. It doesn't say that it has a mind or that it's personal. It doesn't say that it's triune or it cares about sin, right? It doesn't say it's maximally great. All that is extra, right? We can clearly conceive of a necessary being with no mind, a necessary being with no personality, a necessary being that is simply the fundamental physical structure of reality. If that's even possible, then having a mind, having a will, being three in one, being morally perfect, being maximally great, all of that is contingent. It means that it's not required for the job of being the necessary being. And at that point, the Christian God becomes a bloated candidate, right? You've got all sorts of extra properties that are not metaphysically required, extra complexity that doesn't improve explanation at all. That also triggers redundancy and parsimony issues, right? So if a simple, mindless, necessary being can do all the grounding work, then postulating a complex, triune, or maybe not even triune. I'm not sure, New Jack. Moral supermind is like adding invisible angels to explain gravity, right? It's metaphysical clutter. Now, like Highlander says, there can only be one, right? But I'm going to add on fundamental, right? So if you take grounding and if you take grounding and explanation seriously, you don't get multiple unrelated, most basic things, right? Or most fundamental things. If something is truly fundamental, there is nothing more basic or more fundamental than it, right? You can't have two independent foundations, both claiming to be. Our best science already points to a natural candidate, right? A universal quantum field or a universal wave function, the initial state, boundary conditions of our universe, a physical reality from which all particles, forces, and structures arise, right? And so we can put it in a very simple argument, right? So if trees exist, then the fundamental ground for trees exists. Trees exist, therefore the fundamental ground of trees exists, right? Now generalize. The same goes for electrons, stars, brains, everything, right? The best explanation of that fundamental ground given modern physics is a single unified physical base, the universal quantum field. That is the natural necessary being. Now watch what happens if my opponent adds God, right? So if God exists, God grounds a universal quantum field, right? And then you've got some issues that pop up, right? So either the universal quantum field is truly fundamental, in which case God is redundant, right? And it would be, you trim the fat there on the God, or God is more fundamental, which means our entire best physical picture is radically wrong at the base and must be thrown out without scientific reason, right? Which would absolutely annihilate our understanding of the world. We would know nothing, right? Either way, the Christian God is a worse necessary being candidate than the universal quantum field. It's more complex, less parsimonious, and in tension with the uniqueness of the fundamental, right? Now, I'll bring in the modal nuke that theists love and turn it on them, right? Jack kind of alluded to this in the introduction that he gave. So, but I already had this plan. You've probably heard of versions of the modal ontological argument, right? Generally, it's necessarily if God exists necessarily, right? Possibly God exists, therefore God exists. I'm going to use the reverse modal ontological argument instead, right? So necessarily if God exists necessarily. Possibly God does not exist, therefore God does not exist, right? So premise one is just classical theism, right? The perfect Christian God exists. He doesn't just happen to exist. He exists in all possible worlds, right? So the debate's over premise two. Is it really possible there's no God? And obviously it is. We can easily conceive of a world with the same physics, same laws, same universal quantum field at the base, with galaxies, planets, life, and even moral agents, but no hidden divine mind behind it, no extra God layer on top, right? There is no contradiction in that description. It's just a godless universe. If you accept the standard British principle that conceivability is defeasible evidence of possibility, then possibility God does not exist then the possibility God does not exist is extremely plausible. But if that's true and God would have to exist in every possible world, if he exists at all, then the conclusion follows God does not exist, right? The Christian can't shrug it off, right? They themselves lean on conceivability when they say it's possible that a perfect God exists or mind exists without a brain, right? Now, I need to jump ahead. So if they do this, they can no longer use it's conceivable that God exists, therefore possibly God exists, right? And so this is a disaster because every mind we have ever observed exists in virtue of a brain. Every mental life we know is tied to a physical substrate. There are billions of data points, 0 verified exceptions. So we get an inductive argument. All observed minds occur in virtue of brains. Therefore, all minds occur in virtue of brains.
That's time.
I guess I'm out of time there. So,
all right. Excellent appetizer by both you guys. Looking forward to the main course. Fantastic openings on both sides. The main discussion section is going to start now. It is 60 minutes of open discussion. The same rules apply. Just let me remind you guys, keep the over talking and the interruptions to a minimum. And I don't think low blows will be a problem with you two guys. You guys are ready. I will start your 60-minute timer and let's get it on.
Yeah, I'm ready whenever, man.
All
Yes.
right, here we
That
go.
was I want to offer that was an excellent opening. And I realized I may have come in from a different perspective than anticipated, because I do identify with the Christian ideals, not so much the orthodoxy or the traditions. But you brought up near
Are you
the
a
end,
Trinitarian, just so I know for this?
I can accept the Trinitarian position. Now,
Are you agnostic on it?
You can take me off if you want to.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Like, are you not sure if the Trinity is the right position on that or not?
no,
Or do you claim the Trinity?
I believe the Trinity explains the multiplicity of the one. Does that make sense? So I'm not limited to just a Trinity, but I know our God, the one God, as the multiple. It comes in many, many forms.
Do you think there's a Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit?
The body, the mind, the emotion.
Okay. And you said maximal greatness. What is maximal greatness to you?
It would be like the best of the best of the best, beyond we can imagine, in any capacity or direction that we can imagine the best. Right? So the good of the good, it's the best of the best. And along
Are good and best synonymous here?
good and best. Not necessarily, but
What do they mean in this sense?
pointing towards the ultimate in goodness, because the ultimate in goodness is what I identify as the maximally great, right? And in the
Did you say pointing to the ultimate of goodness?
Yes.
So you would define good or best as pointing to the ultimate of goodness.
Well, maximally great would be the most exaggerated goodness, right? The perfect.
So what does goodness mean?
That which is good, that which is life bringing, life protecting, life nurturing. Those things are good.
Okay, so good means life bringing, life nurturing, life protecting.
Yes.
Is your God all powerful?
Yes. It is the
it
power.
all knowing?
Yes.
So it's a classical triomni God.
Yes.
Gotcha.
The omniscient, omnipotent, and what was the other one? See, I'm new to these languages, right?
Omnipresence, omniscient,
Yeah.
omnipotence, and omnipresence.
Omnipresence. That's
Or,
the other. And
omnibenevolent. I'm sorry. That's what you're saying. Omnibenevolent. My bad. Because you're saying it's all good. Or maximally good. Gotcha.
Yeah.
So if it's so the issue I see, so obviously we can go into the necessary being stuff in a minute, but when it comes to the tri-omni God, and I know people have a more I didn't prepare like a formal logical problem of evil, but I find that pretty convincing that if there was an all good, all powerful God, and it truly had the desire to provide maximally good or maximally great outcomes, and it had the capability to, as I just said it did, I find it pretty convincing that this isn't the best of all possible worlds, because I can imagine a world where we have the ability, we still have this quote unquote free. I don't really understand the free will thing, but I still could say, yeah, I can imagine this free will thing that people claim in another universe or possible world where the God just made it so that it's so good you don't have to. If you're claiming maximally great, and then the rest of the omnis, and maximally great is somewhat synonymous with omnibenevolent, I would just be convinced right there that your God can't exist. That would seem like a nonsense pile to me, right?
The way, sure. Well, it's maybe it sounds too good to be true, right? But
I mean, does that make sense to you? Like, can you imagine a world where we have the ability to do whatever we want still, but it's just so good you just never make that choice, and it's just so much better? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And that would seem to contradict the notion of the God that you presented.
it may, however, I believe we're on this path where we may experience mankind going from where we are into this new kingdom, this new way of living here on earth, where we still have the free will, but things are changed. Our value systems are redirected. We've addressed the principalities and the rulers that are in between everyone's ear holes. And we move away from this profit-driven world into the world of wisdom. And in that world of wisdom, following the way, right? The idea of the maximally great being was offered to us in the history of man in a form that we could relate to. Many know it as Jesus, the maximally great man. When the world, more of the world starts following that way of being, the way he was teaching, the way he was walking and demonstrating for those who saw him and encountered him, and then for those who learned about him, if the world people walk that way, sin and choice, cruelty, selfishness, those things are not options you even entertain. That's what I've found for myself, at least.
I just don't see what the point of even bringing. So, like, we're talking about this metaphysical claim, right? About the fundamental nature of reality. And you're saying ignore all of that metaphysical claim stuff around the necessary being stuff, which is the topic, and go to this Jesus thing that existed 2,000 years ago. And we're talking about like fundamentality, you know what I mean? It just seems to be really far off topic and unrelated. I don't think that there would be anything Jesus related you could say that would be on topic.
May I swing it around?
Sure.
Okay, because it'll kind of swing back to some of your opening as well. You mentioned the universal quantum field, and you had another name for it as well, but I get what you're pointing at. And
the initial state, to be clear.
Okay. Yes. Now, trying to tie connect a few of these dots so they come out is what I'm looking here. So I believe this field that we're pointing at, the quantum field of potentiality that brings forth everything that we know. I believe there is a personality within that field, and that personality, right, swinging back to the argument of a personal nature of God, the personal qualities of this divine being that's everywhere and all times and at all things, and it is the goodness. The personality is found in nature, and in the animals, and in the people. We're kind of exaggerated animals created from earth, and there's a humor in everything, right? And so the personality and from the words of the scripture, which points to the God of Jesus, the Father of Jesus, and what he brought forth, it all ties together that we emerge from this power of love. And love has a supreme intelligence, right? Life and love, it's like an attribute of one or the other. I don't know. It's the cause and effect. The two are intertwined and can't be separated. The only thing that is separated from within this universe is that which is behind it.
So that's good. That I think that ties us back into that quite well, back into the metaphysics, and pulls us off the Jesus topic, because I don't think the Jesus topic is related. So a necessary being is just something that exists in all possible worlds and cannot fail to exist, right? All of that is extra. We can clearly conceive of a necessary being with no mind, no personality, a necessary being that's simply the fundamental physical structure of reality. It sounds like you can legitimately conceive of that.
That would mean there's no purpose. But
you could conceive of it. It would just be no purpose, right? It would be a world with no purpose.
no, I cannot accept the randomness.
Well, it's not about accepting it. It's that you can conceive of it. You can imagine this because you're saying there would be randomness.
Certainly.
You're saying there would be this.
Fair enough. I can accept it, but I find it to be illogical. And
well, what would be the contradiction? Or how would it be illogical?
A mechanism of creation without an original creator? I mean, is that
okay? So what do you mean by illogical? I don't think you mean what I think you mean by illogical. So what do you mean by illogical? Are you using some like colloquial sense of the word?
It doesn't make a practical sense to me. What would
okay.
What would
so it's more incredulity. It's more like
possibly.
I can't imagine it being that, or not even that. I don't think that it could be that way, even if I can't imagine.
Okay, possibly that might be the most accurate. Thank you. Yeah, I don't. Maybe it's because I haven't spent as much time considering it. The absence of a loving creator. I've spent hours and hours considering the love from and the love I find. And so, can love exist without intelligence within it? No, because it's the awareness, it's the consciousness, and that brings us back into the quantum field. I propose that what we truly are is no thing. You and I and everything in this universe, we don't exist. We're just perceptions of change and awareness. We're thoughts and feelings within the greater mind. Now, in your opening, you were pointing to the connection between brain and mind. And I didn't follow closely to where you were going with that.
Yeah, I just wanted to drop my argument before I ran out of time because there's a little bit more around that.
Please.
But so every mind we've ever observed exists in virtue of a brain. So every mind we know is tied to a physical substrate. There are billions upon billions of data points, and there's zero verified exceptions. We don't have an example of a disembodied mind. And that gives us a pretty solid inductive argument. All observed minds occur in virtue of brains, therefore all minds occur in virtue of brains. It's induction, so it's going to be probabilistic. So it's saying that therefore it's extremely likely all minds occur in virtue of brains, but it's inductive, so I don't really have to say that. But what's up? You're like nodding your head no?
Yeah, I'm suggesting that might be, we may have been limited in where and how we were looking for evidence of mind, because our current, as I understand, the way we measure mind is just electrical signals, synapses firing within the brain tissue, right? But those are just measurements of energy, right? So neurons are found throughout the universe. They're just particle of energy, is my understanding. I, I don't fully understand it all, but there's also studies regarding the Heart Math Institute. They found neurons or signs of intelligence from our heart, measuring the hearts as well. Now, again, I'm not an expert. I could not explain the details of these things, but I do know that there's signs of intelligence, and intelligence in my,
I just don't think that if you don't have the study for us to quickly access, and I can't verify or somebody can't verify that what you're saying is true, I don't think that's fair to
fair
bring up
enough.
a study like that, because it's
Fair.
very possible you could have misunderstood it. You could be
I may have.
misrepresenting it. Maybe you just read the abstract. I don't know the situation. Right?
I mean, fair.
I just don't think that would be fair, because that would take up time, and that would just be an extra thing to address with no study, right?
Yeah.
So, based on our ability to conceive of a world with no God, even if you dislike the idea, yeah, so you imagined a fundamental reality where the necessary being is just the fundamental structure of reality, right? You like imagine the world how it is now, just with no divine mind behind it.
I'd be unable to.
You can't
Because-
imagine the world as it is now with the physical laws in place and you using the internet and whatever else. There's black holes up in outer space, and there's Mars and the sun, and there's plants that are growing and using chlorophyll to convert sunlight to energy, right? You can't imagine all of this just with no God.
No, because again,
I can.
but you're not. Yeah, I'm in my past I could, because I believed in the physical reality. Nope. Or I used to believe in a world, I used to be able to imagine a world without God until I learned more. And now that I've learned what I can, no, there is no possibility. Now, can I explain it adequately? Apparently not. But within me, there is no possibility of our existence without God.
So the argument still holds that I presented, because I can imagine a world with no God. So that
Okay.
the argument that I presented was necessarily, if God exists necessarily. Possibly God doesn't exist, premise 2, which is justified by the fact that I can imagine a world with no God, and so can every atheist, every agnostic, and most Christians and most theists.
Sure.
And so the conclusion necessarily follows, therefore, God does not exist.
Yeah. That's what I was trying to do. So if I may, what I'd really like to bring our topic of conversation to is the variable of consciousness, right? The awareness of information. That does not exist without a mind of God offering forth that gift of awareness.
Prove it.
Okay. How about, let's go the reverse. I mean, the reverse is actually the way I came to the conclusion I did. I started trying to figure out, how do I prove me? How do I prove that I exist if there's no others to confirm I exist? Do I exist? I mean, that was the life I was living. I got kind of isolated from the rest of the world.
This is a change of topic. I asked you to prove something
Let
else.
me get to the point. This morning, our childhood, 2,000 years ago, it's all memories and thoughts, right? The future, not here, never happened, right? It's just in the imagination. Even right now, this momentary moment, the fractional second that never really lasts, that's what we are, this fractionary second of awareness of being. And all that I am in this moment, I am the awareness of my being. I am the awareness of thoughts and feelings. But beyond that, that's all I am. And that's all any of us are. We're the awareness of temporary states of energy and thoughts and feelings just for moments. We don't exist, not like we think we do.
Can you tie that to necessary existence?
Well, if we're going to make the claim that we exist, then God exists. If God does not exist, we do not exist. We're just hallucinating this. We're dreaming.
All right. So I think that I don't want to accuse you of using a word concept fallacy, but I think there's an issue that's going on here. So
Okay.
I asked you to provide justification for the claim that you made that information requires a divine mind, right? But I think we should define information first. So, is the definition of information that you're using measure of knowledge about a physical system state related to its microscopic possibilities and uncertainty? Or are you using the definition a complex concept with a broad meaning, including the process of being informed, e.g., the act of teaching, the form that makes something what it is, the form of a horse in the mind, and an abstract entity that can be stored and transmitted?
I suppose trying to answer that question of what is information is like trying to answer the question of what is energy.
No,
What
I
is
just
light.
provided two definitions. I
Those,
provided the physics definition
Mhm.
and the philosophy definition because they're
Mhm.
two different definitions, and I think you might be mixing them up.
Okay. Well,
So, can you provide just a? Oh, sorry.
I'm trying to explain what I know, and maybe what I know doesn't fall under someone else's definitions or interpretations of what I know. I'm not sure that I heard a solid information it can be anything. It's information, which is words, ideas, data that's available to be processed through the mind. It's a concept, I guess, perhaps, because information is just perhaps a property, a description of a property of a substance or object, or right, something of being. But the information is not the thing, it's a property of the thing for the better understanding of the thing. Does that fall into those definitions very well?
You think the information is a measure of the knowledge about a physical system state related to its microscopic possibilities and uncertainty? I think, which would require no mind, because
That's
in
not my
physics, measurement is just an observation or loosely defined. It's not just a person doing it.
Ooh, I like that. Information is a reduction of uncertainty. But again, what would be the definition of certainty or uncertainty? It's an internal perspective, a state of awareness of knowledge and information. It all ties back to consciousness.
So, not exactly, not the physics portion, but unless you're, well, I mean, because there's like measurements and shit. But the claim that you're making is that a divine mind is required for information. So even if we grant it's measurement related, and a human has to do a measurement, right? Where is the God in any of that?
The knower.
The knower would be the people in that.
The knower is the spirit of God that is within us, the aspect of God's mind that allows us to know. The knower is the necessarily required.
So you're saying
God.
that there is God's mind in each of us?
Yes.
Can you prove that?
I could try to explain.
Okay.
But proof.
Okay, could you colloquially prove it? Like provide some type of good evidence that would make me convinced that I have a part of a God essence inside of me?
I don't know if the man would agree with me, but what comes to my mind is the work from Rupert Sheldrake. Now, I know some people have opinions about everyone, but I believe his theories and explanations on the morphogenetic field, the field of thought from which we emerge, I believe that kind of does clarify.
So, for clarification, you think that all of this emerges from a field of thought?
I believe that this quantum universal field that, science points at, I believe that's like within the mind of God. It's within the realm of potentiality and possibility. And so,
What?
yeah. It's like we are each individual thought forms participating in the story being imagined by the one universal mind. And all of us are different aspects of this one universal mind. We have our perception, and then we're led to choose the right choices for our path. And then through our free will, that determines, right, to create your own adventure through life.
I'm just like,
Well,
I don't even know how to, like, where to address that. So you're just making claims, and it sounds very woo, Jack.
I understand.
And I would like you to say there's like this study that shows that we have the essence of God in us, or something like that, or like maybe there's like a soft science study where it's like one of the ones that works around the mind, right, and works around emotions and shit. Maybe they find something, right, and it's not like 100%, but it's like there's evidence pointing to it, because evidence against a soul would be something like, if you, I think it's your corpus callosum, if you have it split, you develop two consciousness. It's neither been proven nor disproven, right? And so if that was proven, maybe it has been proven at this point, I don't know for sure, but when I last checked, it was neither proven nor disproven, right? And if that is true, then there's absolutely, I'd be absolutely convinced there's no soul. I mean, I'm absolutely convinced there's no soul now, but I would be like even more dug in. I don't think maybe I couldn't be dug in more. I don't know, but that would be amazing. Right now, it's good evidence against it because it appears to be something that happens. But like, if you have two consciousnesses arise in your brain, two separate quote unquote souls, is what you might call it. That would be directly against this like eternal spirit thing that you guys claim. In that it would be splitting this like eternal spirit into two from the physical being split, right? And so I would think that would be good evidence, and all the neuroscience, in fact, would be good evidence that it's all entirely physical, and we're not participating in this God's grand design, right? It would suggest that we're just products of the physical.
I'm not fully aware of what the study you're referring to. However,
In the corpus callosum, it's just a phenomenon when it's split. That I'm not referring to a specific study on that. What I was saying if I said study, I was referring to
the ideas
like the body of science right now around the brain is physicalist.
I understand this. I am convinced, though, that the material part of our existence, the physical part, it's not really as relevant as we believe. I mean, it's important to know all the aspects that we can of where we are, including the physical patterns.
But you're in a debate about God being the necessary being, and then you're claiming that as part of this, you're trying to define this God, and you're calling it the knower, and you're saying that, and then you define that as being a part of us, and you're saying that this God knower property is inside of us, and you're just, I'm not trying to say it negatively, but it seems like it's just jibber jabber, not actually some type of good evidence or convincing statements about your position where we have this divine mind thing inside of us, right? You'd think that if that was true, that would be something we would want to know, right?
In where I was going, I said I think the material aspects of our experience is of less significance to the higher aspects. The higher aspects of this truly is a spiritual experience. Now, can I prove God? No, I cannot. I can offer the evidence, the best case explanations, just like any other knower of knowledge can do. We can offer what we can. But I truly believe that this is all by divine plan. To know God, it does require faith. And if there's faith that there is no God, then there is no God. But if you can have faith that there is, this was my experience. When I found faith in the possibility that there could be a God, I started finding the evidence. I couldn't see it anywhere, any other time. And then once I started seeing it, it was like, holy crap. Oh my God, how could I not see this? How could I not see what is so there? And that's the power and control of God.
Yeah, so you're saying that you started to have faith, and then you started finding evidence and seeing evidence. You were like, how could I not see this? And how could I not see what is so there? But you can't even describe it.
It was there's been many inner realizations that have come forth that confirmed words from the Bible, teachings of Jesus, stuff like that. It really is the psychology of what he was teaching.
Yeah. Also, we have a super chat from Felisa by Nature for $20. Thank you, Felisa by Nature. Jack, a coherent argument for you. If consciousness arises from the quantum field, and that field is universal and irreducible, then a universal consciousness exists necessarily. Its presence is required for any mind to emerge. What say you?
I agree. Do you agree with that, Taco?
Thank you so much for the super chat, Felicia. Let me see.
Please.
If consciousness arises from the quantum field, and that field is universal and irreducible, then a universal consciousness exists necessarily. its presence is required for any mind to emerge. I mean, I can understand what it's saying. It's coherent. It doesn't seem to actually cohere with reality, though, right? The mind appears to emerge from complexity, which arises in like pockets of high entropy, which is not going to be the case in the early state of the universe, right? And so I just wouldn't say that a universal consciousness exists necessarily. There's going to be other argumentation you could do against that. Like I said, where is it? I mean, I guess you could say like all minds occur in virtue of brains. I guess you could take like a physicalist version of that, and then that is physicalist, but you could take like all minds occur in virtue of physical substrate, therefore all minds occur in virtue of physical substrate, and then you could like cash out your god the Christian god that you're claiming, and you could go to like a deistic position, or no, it would be like a panpsychism, I think, where consciousness is part of the universe, and you would no longer be a Christian, and I think my mission would be completed. I think that would be a concession from the topic, because we are arguing the Christian God, right? But if you want to retreat to panpsychism, as I mentioned in my introduction, I think that would be I would be willing to take the concession. Are you wanting to retreat to panpsychism? Like
Before you do that,
conscious?
Before you do that, let's get to a $5 super chat from Kieran Dave. Jack, how do we differentiate your certainty in this from the certainty of many people with opposing ideas? Thank you, Kieran.
I would certainly encourage investigation. Where does that certainty come from, and what has potentially been ignored or overlooked? I mean, I'm certainly open to that, but I've been challenging myself, and I've faced and found many people who find disagreement, but much of the disagreement I faced, if what I felt is that it wasn't from a common understanding, right? They were arguing about things they didn't, I don't know. But I do stand behind this idea that for consciousness and knowledge to be, it must emanate from a divine mind. And that divine mind indicates a personality, perhaps, right?
Where are you seeing a divine mind and a personality? Like I said, we're arguing for a necessary being, and neither of those are a part of a necessary being, right? And if you're, as you said earlier in this discussion, you can imagine a necessary being that has no mind, no personality, is simply the fundamental physical structure of reality. That was something you said earlier in this debate.
Oh.
Earlier in this debate, when I said we can clearly conceive of a necessary being with no mind, a necessary being with no personality, a necessary being that is simply the fundamental physical structure of reality, I had brought that back up during the debate, and you had agreed with that.
Maybe I found a little disagreement, but and I don't mean to move the goalpost if I did agree with you, but are you saying I agreed that there's no God necessarily? Because I don't remember that.
That would be the entailment from that.
Okay, then yeah, I don't.
So the argument necessarily, if God exists, God necessarily exists. Possibly God doesn't exist, therefore God doesn't exist, still holds, because I can imagine a world with no God. So the only thing that you could do is tell me that I'm lying. You'd have to claim that you're psychic or something and tell me that I'm lying. or that I'm like conceptually confused, or you're going to have to accept that I can imagine a world with no God. Do you accept that I can imagine a world with no God?
I already stated that I could. In my past, I was able to do the same thing.
Right. So premise 2 holds. So possibly God doesn't exist is a
Or
true premise. And then the conclusion necessarily follows, therefore God doesn't exist. And we can be certain of the truth of that conclusion. So,
and they can be wrong. They can be wrong.
So are you saying that everybody in the world is wrong that is able to currently imagine a world with no God? Are you saying that they're all conceptually confused, Jack Talcott?
I'm saying that many are lost and many are confused.
I'm asking, is your opinion that they are all conceptually confused if they cannot imagine a world with God, or if they can imagine a world with no God? Are they all conceptually confused? They don't know what they're imagining?
I'm reluctant to agree with that because I don't want to make such a generalized conclusion, but certainly I can understand that many people are, as I used to be, in denial.
Is there anybody that you believe is actually able to imagine a world with no God, Jack?
People are capable of imagining all sorts of things.
So can I imagine a world with no God?
We are children who can imagine anything.
Jack, Can I imagine a world with no God?
Based upon my experience with you, I'm confident that you can.
So necessarily, if God exists, God necessarily exists. That's the necessary being premise. Possibly God doesn't exist, which is granted by the fact that you acknowledge that I can imagine a world with no God. I can conceive of a world with no God. So, and you granted that. So premise 2 is true. And then the conclusion necessarily follows. Therefore, God does not exist. So welcome to atheism, brother.
I can't. So I guess the only alternative I have is please help me to understand how is it possible for existence without God?
Yeah, so you have a fundamental state of the physical stuff. That's the necessary being. It has no mind. It has no consciousness. It has no will. It's not all good. It's probably considered all powerful or maximally powerful, in that it's all the stuff. And so it would be all the energy and all the power, right? There's no, it's probably considered all knowing too, technically, or maximally knowing, because everything that has the ability to know something would know something, right? And so maybe that's like maximally knowing and like maximally powerful, because there's a finite amount of stuff. It's not an infinite amount of stuff, right? So I think maximally would probably be the terms that would be applicable there if you were to ascribe something like that. But those aren't like a part of the nature. That's just the way the stuff is, and then you're describing the stuff, right? But this stuff has some type of instability that happens in no time, and it happens like immediately. And then this stuff rapidly inflates, and it think of like a balloon. The stuff begins to inflate, and the energy is released, and it begins to cool. And then the bonds form, and you get atoms, and then you have space ping pong, stars going off, explode, and the chemical evolution throughout the universe, the stellar evolution throughout the universe. You get to Earth. I mean, this would be the explanation, right, Jack? You get to Earth, you have abiogenesis, evolution, and then you get to today, right? That would be the explanation you're looking for, Jack.
As you described me, saying words, not really making sense. That's what I hear.
You think that I'm saying words and not making sense?
Yeah.
That's unfortunate that you feel that way, Jack.
I know it is, and I don't mean to be this way. I really don't. I'm wondering, what is the path? What is the path?
What is wrong with the answer I gave you?
You presented, as I understood, you presented a realm or a place with just randomness, no will, no purpose, and yet somehow it's still held together. But no God, just the fundamental structures of physicality without a purpose or a plan. I don't buy it. It doesn't sound plausible.
Okay.
Why does it not sound plausible?
Let me break in here for a super
Okay,
chat.
yep, sure. Absolutely.
We got $4.99 from Singer Soul. Says, I'm a little late. What even is this God thing you're putting forth? How do you know what it is? Are you just conceptualizing what you think it is? I'm guessing that's for Jack. And or it could be for both of you because you have a necessary being too, Tacos. Thank you, Singer Soul.
The God thing we're putting forth. Yeah. Are we conceptualizing what we think it is? Yes. Generally, yes. Trying to conceptualize the existence or non-existence, the participant, or participation of a creator being. I keep coming back to the realm of mind. All is consciousness. All we are is the awareness of the information of our being. Now, what does that mean, right? Information. The informed awareness of our being. And that cannot happen without a higher mind, a mind that is greater than just our own, that we can each individually tap into.
So why couldn't that just happen through natural evolutionary processes on Earth as life changes over time and gets more advanced, right? Or more complex?
It could, only if there was an intelligence within the design.
What if it was just natural order, though, is what I'm saying, right? So it seems to be the case that life is directly tied to entropy, right? Or very closely tied to entropy. There's a bunch of physical forces involved in that and whatnot, but life arises in pockets of high entropy, right? And wouldn't that be a sufficient counter to your position, just bringing that up? That it's just like chemical processes occurring according to the natural law and biochemical processes when you get to a certain point. I feel like that would be a sufficient counter to your point, because that's at least backed by the science, right?
There's patterns in the science for sure. But to me, again, what all of these signs of science show is intelligence. The intelligence is brought forth for life to sustain life. It's the process of creation. That's what we are. We are the creative force in this being with the intelligence and the ability to connect to God, to the greatest mind, the highest mind, I should say, perhaps.
2-minute warning, guys.
Oh, wow.
Okay, and then I got another argument, and I did mention this in the opening. Since you didn't present arguments, I did, but if trees exist, then the fundamental ground for trees exists. Do you agree or disagree with that?
I believe so. I was trying to follow that, and I believe I do. Go ahead, please.
And then trees exist.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So therefore, the fundamental ground of trees exists. All right, and so you accept that conclusion. That's modus ponens. the best explanation of the fundamental ground of trees is the universal quantum field. And that's backed up by the scientific consensus.
Okay.
The initial state, right? Therefore, the universal quantum field is the fundamental ground of trees.
Okay.
There you go. Welcome
And
to
what is-
atheism, brother.
What is the fundamental ground of that field?
To be fundamental would mean that it's not, you can't go any more fundamental than it.
Okay, so there's a field
I'm
of
talking about the
general-
fundamental state, right? It's not like something is fundamental and there's something more fundamental, right?
Okay. But so you're suggesting that this field of state, which is the ground for the tree, which we agree is in existence, but you're suggesting that this fundamental state has no intelligence within it, that there's not a design perfectly being revealed within this quantum field of infinite potentiality?
And that's a good place to end it. That's our hour-long open debate.
All right, we have extra time. So your claim that you'd be making is if God exists, God grounds the universal quantum field. And then we're going to assume that your God exists for this reductio. And then God grounds the universal quantum field. That would be the modus ponens for that position. So and so you also agreed that there is only one fundamental. There's not multiple fundamental, right?
Yes, I don't believe I
But
don't
like
believe
if something is ungrounded, it would be fundamental would be equivalent to like ungrounded here. So you're saying that with the God being ground, so God grounds the universal quantum field was the conclusion there. The universal quantum field is grounded and possibly not grounded, right? And not grounded, right? Because it's not grounded, but it would be grounded, right? And so we would have to have the conclusion that God does not exist, right? Just because you can't have like a ungrounded grounded, that would be a contradiction, right? So that would be proof through contradiction that your God can't exist.
I'm not convinced on that reasoning. It seems a little.
So I presented a proof through contradiction. I presented a couple arguments on leading to the universal quantum field as the necessary being, and you accepted that. I presented the reverse modal ontological argument, and you accepted it. I don't know what else to do, Jack. You've accepted all of my arguments that go against your position. You're one of us at this. Let me see. Do I have any more arguments you can accept here? Premise one: all observed minds occur in virtue of brains. Do you agree or disagree?
I don't know that I can agree to that because I don't believe that is accurate.
Is there one observed mind that you can point to that doesn't occur in virtue of a brain?
Okay, again, we need to more clearly define mind. Because if it's just the observance of the activity of processing of thoughts,
but you would agree then that all observed minds occur in virtue of brains, right?
From our known studies of animals and plants, I would suggest yes. Okay. Now
Okay.
I don't.
And so the conclusion colloquially follows. Therefore, all minds occur in virtue of brains. This is an inductive argument, though, so it doesn't necessarily follow like the God doesn't exist in the argument that I presented earlier. It necessarily follows. Like I said, you could be certain of that conclusion. But all minds occur in virtue. Also, dude, that is a sound argument. That RMOA. Do you think if a God existed and it was all good and all powerful and all knowing, it would allow somebody to create a sound argument against it, something that guarantees the certainty of its non-existence? Do you think that an all good, all knowing entity that's going to punish all powerful, that's going to punish people, send them to hell if they don't believe in it, is going to allow these people to damn themselves to hell by creating a sound argument against it? That's insane to me.
I agree with you.
It's like that problem of evil on steroids. You're so smart, you can reason yourself to hell? That's insane. That's the problem of evil on steroids, Jack.
It's a beautiful game that we were created to play with. That's what we're on. We're playing this game. My apologies. You said something there regarding the mind, the brain. Again, I don't know that we can prove conclusively that we are not within the mind of God. Now, perhaps there's just a sensory sense of brain that we don't sense. Maybe it's that quantum field that we're measuring and identifying. Maybe that's within the mind of God. It just takes a different form than the tissues that we're aware of.
You accepted the argument that said that couldn't be the case, though. There can only be one fundamental thing. The God couldn't ground the ungrounded.
God couldn't ground the ungrounded.
God can't ground the ungrounded. So if you would claim that, we would know your God can't exist, because the fundamental state is ungrounded, right? That's the fundamental state. And so your God, if you claimed it grounded the ungrounded, we would know it doesn't exist because that's already ungrounded.
All I'm trying to point to is the signs of intelligence that are with us overrides any theories of randomness. That's just illogical. It's taking a big picture and then looking at just, small form of data, and we're coming up with these theories. But there's an intelligence that has brought forth the advancement of civilization, of people. We can see evidence of intelligence and design in the study of animals, the study of time, and all we're studying, everything we're studying is just from the perspective here on Earth, and it's all through the interpretation of the human consciousness. And I believe there is like one mind of humanity that all of us tap into, and we get these different ideas, and it's through the quality and energy of our state.
You agree that the initial state has to exist, right? Because without an initial state, there would be nothing, right?
That initial state is nothing.
Oh, you think that nothing can exist or did exist?
Not with God. That's just it.
So did God make everything out of nothing or something or itself?
Well, I suggest it comes from itself, from no thing. And our God is no thing. It's not a thing. It's
okay.
It's
So this creates a redundancy and parsimony issue, and then because at least I can imagine a necessary being with no mind, no personality. That's the most simple, right? The fundamental structure of physical reality, right? Because I can imagine that it's not going to be necessary for a necessary being to have a mind, will, Trinity, being morally perfect, nothing like that. None of that's going to be required. And so that's all that is going to be creating a bloated ontology for you, where you have all this unnecessary baggage, right? They're just not metaphysically required. There's no necessity there, right? And they don't improve any explanations because this physical substrate could do it all itself and get exactly where we are today without a God. And so you've got redundancy issues in that there's two necessary being claims because the initial state is going to be a necessary being and it can provide for all that is just through the fact that nothing can't exist. So something has to exist. And so it would have to exist by its own nature. It could not fail to exist, right? And so because something cannot fail to exist, we have a necessary being. It would have to exist in all possible worlds. Any possible world that you imagine is going to share some history with that actual world, that initial state, right? And anything that could be actual would share history with that initial state, right? And so this is going to, like I said, this is going to create redundancy issues for you in that you can't have two necessary beings. The Highlander says, and I kind of explained that in my intro too. But basically, you can't have two necessary beings, right? And so the ungrounded is already going to be the ungrounded, and that's going to be a contradiction. And then the parsimony issue that arises, the principle of parsimony, or Occam's razor, is like trimming the metaphysical fat here, right? It's going for the maybe not the most simple, but like the most simple, the least amount of parts, the best virtue, right? Just like the best option there, right? It's not always exactly the most simple, right? But in this case, it would be the most simple. It would be the fundamental state, right? The initial state, which would still be required for this God thing. If you claim this God thing, you would still have to have this initial state in which every state could arise. But like I said, because something does exist, there can't be nothing. There's a possible world there in which that stuff just exists because there can't be nothing, right? It cannot fail to exist. It has to exist. It has to exist in all possible worlds because all possible worlds are going to share history with that state, right? And so,
just so I know we don't have any disagreement, truth can exist without being discovered. Do you disagree with that? Can something be true without being known?
To be clear, I think truth is a property of like a proposition, a statement, something like that, right? Like, is the cat is sitting on the mat, right? That's going to be true in virtue of a cat sitting on a mat, right? If a cat is not sitting on a mat, then that's not going to be. There's not like some truth on ontological truth thing out there that exists as like a separate entity. It's just something that we are. It's a property of like a statement or a proposition, right?
Okay, but
like there's a water bottle on my desk. That's true if there's a water bottle on my desk, right? But there's not like some true water bottle on my desk floating in some platonic realm or something.
Correct. I guess what I'm trying to point at in that scenario, if you don't know it, if no one sees it, if that bottle of water is on the desk, unverifiable, is it true?
If the statement is there's a water bottle on the desk and the state of affairs is the water bottle is on the desk, even if nobody knows it, it's still true because there's a water bottle on the desk.
All right. Well, that's kind of the position I'm trying to point out with God. Is there is a presence of God and its intelligence and its beingness. It is.
This is just an appeal to mystery. You just did argument from analogy that ended up in an appeal to mystery, dude.
Is there a problem with God being a mystery?
Yeah, you're just claiming that like all these arguments I accepted that are evidence against my position are all nonsense because I feel like there could be an maybe if, right? I feel like this maybe if thing could exist still. And so you're like pushing off onto the side and going into the weeds instead of actually addressing any of the argumentation. None of the argumentation that I presented tonight has been addressed. You touched none of them. You accepted all the arguments. Every single argument I presented that is arguments against your position, you accepted, Jack.
Okay. I guess you won, but where I was
Well, it's not
trying to
about
go,
winning. I'm here to save you, my brother in atheism. This
and
is
Is that a concession?
chance.
well, I guess it doesn't. I've been trying. I wanted to try and get a thought out again, but
Okay.
regarding the truth, and you immediately dismissed, and I actually hadn't even continued my process, but the conclusion, the point I was trying to get at, just simply, is there are perspectives of this experience that I suggest you have not yet discovered. Okay. And the perspectives of the experience will bring more clarity of the existence of this supreme being that is maximally great. It is perfect. And it is with us every moment.
I already addressed that claim, though.
Okay.
I
Maybe you
presented argumentation against that claim that you accepted.
did. Okay. Well, I don't know where I went wrong then, because I want to agree with what I consider to be honest. Maybe some of this is that
Well, I'm presenting strong arguments, Jack.
you are
Which is the
very good
point.
arguments.
I think my position is correct, which is why on the negative, when I could just pick your brain, I brought the strongest arguments, right? So that I could try to convince you. I want to save you, my brother in atheism. I think this is a good opportunity for me to save you. And you accepted all the arguments against your position, Jack. You have the certainty, the same level of certainty that I do, that your God does not exist, Jack.
No.
That was the point of me providing a deductive argument, because
I
you
realize
can
that.
guarantee the truth of the conclusion with a deductive argument.
And for a second, we have a $9.99 super chat from Singer Soul. I don't think he explained how he knows what the God thing is. It sounds like he's just conceptualizing what he thinks God is, not what he knows about it, and how he knows what it is. Jack.
Well, I've been trying to offer forth my personal experience. I've moved beyond a belief in God. I know. Like I said, I'm more convinced that God exists than I am that I exist. It's only by the grace of God that I get to know anything. Jim D, blessings. Thank you.
Let's kind of try to keep it on the debaters.
See, Taco, it's interesting that opportunity. Now, regarding the comparison, though, my friend, my brother, you and we are so close in our perspectives on so many different things. And yet the conclusion we've come to, it's like opposite ends, it seems. So how does that paradox become resolved?
There's no intelligence. It's just a fundamental substrate, Jack.
Maybe, that's okay. Just a fundamental substrate is a
Correct. It's just a stuff.
severe oversimplification of the mystery of that.
It's not a mystery. It's just the fundamental state of the stuff.
It's an infinite. It's a quantum field of infinite energy, infinite potential that we do not.
The singularity that you're describing.
I know we're living at a time right now where the age of computing and technology has advanced our ability of what we can measure, what we can detect, what we can identify. And I do believe that we are on this timeline of humanity where the greatest truth is becoming realized. And the greatest truth is that God that necessarily is.
Do you have an argument for that? So love is chemical reactions within our body. It's not a creative force, Jack.
Yes, it is. Love is far more than just chemical reactions, my friend. It truly is.
Okay. Well, there's like 16 or so minutes left, right? So do you have any what BS?
I got 7.5 minutes.
Why don't you provide? Do you have a coherent argument for anything around your position at all? I mean, obviously, I wanted to convince you today, but I feel like you're just appealing to mystery every time, even after accepting a bunch of sound arguments. So I don't know. Do you have an argument for your position or something for the audience to wrap their brain nuggets around?
Well, I've actually offered some I feel pretty straightforward conclusions, but they weren't considered and they were quickly dismissed. Regardless, though, taking the view and the position of a Christian, right, follower of Jesus, so we'll bring in this does God exist necessarily, and tying it to the Father that Jesus spoke of, that one God. I know that God has love. That's why we're to mirror, right, the image of God. We are to love God with all our heart, all our mind, all our soul, and love one another. And that love, walking with that love, that is the fulfillment of the law of this universe. Love is the law. Love is God. God is in every realm. It is the foundation and the quality of life. Love and God are inseparable, and those are both necessities of life.
So I don't think any of that did anything to combat the strength of the argumentation that you already accepted.
Okay.
And also, love is chemical reactions within humans. And other species, I guess. Other species could have it too. I don't know. It just seems like you just keep appealing to the void, right? You're just like, I can't imagine it any other way, so it's got to be this mysterious thing. I just don't see any force. Do you have any arguments with force, or that might be convincing to a non-believer?
That question.
Yeah, everybody subscribe to Jack Talcott and BS Lewis. They're both amazing dudes. But we're getting into the conclusions here now, and then we'll
I'll get that.
Cool.
I got
I'm
it.
sorry.
I got it. We're going into closing statements. So each debater has an 8-minute closing statement. We start with the affirmative position, Jack Talcott. And a reminder to the debaters, be precise, be vicious, to vote for who will be the master debater of the evening. Whenever you're ready, Jack.
Please. Thank you. Thank you to the host, the moderator, to all who tuned in, and especially those who contributed and supported. I appreciate it. Explaining the unknowable, trying to prove the undefinable. It seems, is it challenging or is it simple? I guess it depends on where we want to look and how we want to see. The question, does God exist necessarily? And I identify myself as a follower of Jesus. I identify with the Christian values, and that presentation of God that Jesus spoke of, the Father who is with us is the mind of intelligence that's greater than our mind. That is my interpretation of that. And so one of the arguments I make for the affirmative in this case of the necessarily of God is the aspect of consciousness, the activity of mind, the awareness of not just this present beingness, which is the gift from God. The gift from God is the present moment of life. And as time passes in the present is the matter. Matter is where we are. We are the matter of life. We matter. We are a part of the intelligence and the divine will of the universal expression. We're just a small aspect of the universe, and the universe is an aspect of our one God, the one God that can be identified, the qualities can be identified, and the properties can be measured through this physical realm. But even in the sciences, we break this down. The form, right? The matter, it's energy. Energy is a, let me not bring up new arguments. I suggest that by our existence, it points to the fact of a creator. We are the creation that is the evidence of the creator, and the mind and intelligence of that God necessarily exists within us, around us, and it's everywhere. I'll rest with that. And thank you. Thank you again.
Okay, thank you, Jack. 8 minutes on the clock for tacos. Just let me know when you're ready to start.
Jack Talcott. The reason I say this is because in this debate, in the introduction, I very clearly defined a necessary being in the same way that he did. We both shared this definition. Something that exists in all possible worlds and cannot fail to exist. Where in this definition do you hear mind, personal, triune, cares about sin? It's simple, right? All that's extra. None of that's necessary. A necessary being that is simply the fundamental structure of reality, right? That's something we can all conceive of, right? And I think that being possible means that all this extra baggage that Jack Talcott wanted to bring in is simply unnecessary, right? And so he gets stuck with redundancy and parsimony issues, and then contingency issues if he adds on all those, right? We covered how the Highlander says there can only be one. And so he tried to claim that the God could ground the ungrounded, but if the God's grounding the ungrounded, we've got a contradiction of the universal quantum field being grounded and ungrounded, so that God world would fail, so that God can't exist. Jack Talcott had claimed maximally great being, exact words, the possibility of the existence of God will bring it into the equation as necessity. So he was saying that S5 modal logic, the possibility of this God existing. So he's saying something like necessarily if God exists, God necessarily exists. Possibly God exists, therefore God exists. And so I provided so he was providing, like, in not so many words, the standard modal ontological argument. And then my response in my introduction was necessarily, I guess it wasn't really a response, I was just running it, but necessarily if God exists, God necessarily exists. Possibly God doesn't exist, therefore God doesn't exist. And so that's a nice parody of that. It's logically equivalent, and it would be sound, and so you would have to go with like symmetry breakers. My argument works in S4 and other logics, whereas his doesn't, which are like weaker logics, which wouldn't require such crazy commitments like S5 would, where like anything that's possibly necessary is necessary, right? It's just such a crazy commitment, right? And so I think that would defeat that part of his introduction there, at least. What else? There seemed to be some misunderstanding of information. He claimed that divine minds are required for information, but failed to provide any form of argumentation. There was no real argumentation presented, but that's fine. I asked for informal argumentation if he had any. But every time I asked for informal argumentation, it was totally incoherent. At least I felt like it was. I saw some of the stuff in the chat. I think there was some stuff going on there, right? He seemed to understand the idea of a necessary truth, right? But I don't know if he was conflating like necessary truth with necessary being or what the issue was. But I mean, he seemed to clearly understand necessary being too. So I'm not quite sure where he was going with any of that. We both agreed that there can only be one fundamental. He has to claim my fundamental, even if he claims his as fundamental, which would defeat his fundamental, like I said earlier, through redundancy and parsimony. I presented the argument from trees. If trees exist, then the fundamental ground for trees exists. Trees exist, therefore the fundamental ground of trees exists. And then I also provided argumentation as to how the universal quantum field is the best explanation for that, right? God is redundant in pretty much every position we looked at. If he rejects the universal quantum field as being the fundamental ground of trees and says that God is more fundamental, we would have to eschew our entire best physical picture of reality, right? We just have to get rid of it. That would be a pretty significant loss for all of us. We also covered the inductive argument for minds requiring brains. So all observed minds occur in virtue of brains. Therefore, all minds occur in virtue of brains. I think that defeated all of his consciousness woo points that he made. He failed to address that. In fact, he accepted all of these arguments. Every single one of these arguments, he at least accepted the primacy. It was usually after the conclusion of a deductive argument where he was disagreeing, which is weird when he accepted the premises and it guarantees the truth of the conclusion, and he's rejecting it at that point. That was really weird. The inductive argument that I provided is strong and falsifiable. My opponent failed to produce one clear example of a mind existing without any physical foundation. He didn't provide even one. He only provided stories, scriptures, and his feels. He was unable to. His worldview seems to be packed with disembodied minds. Not only does it have like disembodied souls, it's got all the people, it's got a collective consciousness or something, God, angels, demons. That's all I got. Thank you so much, everybody, for hanging out and listening.
Yeah, awesome debate, guys. You guys crushed it. The audience was very receptive. I myself am very interested to see what that poll says, because it was a doozy of a debate, guys. So good job.
All right. The poll is, I just ended it. It's in chat if you want to read it.
Okay, so yeah, let me pull that up, and it looks like our master debater for the night is, wow, it was close, Breakfast Tacos with 55% of the vote. Jack Talcott coming in with 45. That is very close, guys, very close.